In this video, we'll be going through the UV editor and the different tools and techniques that we can use when UV wrapping. So I've got a few little basic geometric shapes. At the moment I've got one selected, and right now the complexity of 3D models isn't really the focus, it's more on what we can do in the editor. So right now I'm going to go into full screen with the cube selected. So first things first, in the top left hand corner we have the basic shader modes. So for instance we have the wireframe and we also have the shaded UVs. Now personally, I think it's way better as well, is you should mainly be using the shaded UVs. Why? Again, if it's in wireframe, it's kind of hard to tell what might be overlapping, for instance, and it's kind of hard to select stuff as well. It's much better to have it in shaded mode because you can see if the UVs are flipped. So for instance, if it's blue, you know, for example, if you had say 1, 2, 3, 4 right across this UV shell, it would read from left to right. If it was in red, it would be in the opposite direction, so we can tell that, yep, we need to start flipping UV shells over. And as well, it's easy to tell if you have two overlapping UV shells. So for instance, right now I've got two there, and you can see that's actually a darker shade of blue, which helps to indicate if we have overlapping shells. Over here, we can turn on the checkered texture. So we don't have to apply our own, we can just use this little button here. Make sure you have this image icon selected as well, so we can see the actual texture. And again, like I said in the previous video, you'll be kind of clicking on and off this particular tool a lot because, again, you'll be using the checkered texture to indicate whether or not the texture might be stretched, how much detail or quality there is, and to make sure that they kind of line up appropriately as well. And at the moment, you can very much see that this sort of black and white image is kind of hard on the eyes. Well, that's for me personally. And a lot of times I like to turn off the image. So if I just press this little image icon here, I can just have the basic grey background for the UV editor to easily work around. But in the perspective view, it will still have the checkered texture or whatever texture is applied still visible there. Now on the right hand side you'll have the UV toolkit. Now if you don't have the UV toolkit on your right hand side, if it's not visible on the screen right now, make sure that you go to tools, and right now it says hide, but if it's hidden it will say show UV toolkit and it should show up somewhere on the screen. Mainly it will show up on the right hand side. Now the UV toolkit works the same way as say the modeling toolkit. It's basically an efficient way of getting the main tools that you'll be using within say the UV editor or in say perspective view in Maya to quickly flick through and select tools that you'll be using along the way. So for instance, right at the top we have the different selection modes. So right now we're in pick, so we can just use the pick/marquee tool, or go straight to drag over to select multiple UV shells, or even turn on say symmetry. So again, we will mainly be using sort of object X and Y. We won't need Z because again, this is a 2D grid, so X and Y are pretty much our only axes that we really need. So for instance, if I go in X and select say one UV point, you'll see that I'll select the opposite one as well, that I can kind of mess around and manipulate like so. And as you can see, we have different tabs, which allows us to do different techniques or use different tools quickly and efficiently, rather than say going over to say tools or modify, etc. to select them. They're all just readily available here with these nice little drop down menus to quickly and seamlessly go through different tools. So we have the transform tools. So right now I can, for instance, change the pivot, so I can put it in different parts of the UV shell, so right bang in the middle, or put it at the top of the bottom of the UV shell to say rotate around. There's also the move tool here, so you can move it at smaller intervals, and as you can see here with move, there's a little drop down icon as well, and you can move it at different intervals, like so you have smaller movements or bigger movements if need be. And you can also make sure it's snap to grid if you want as well, so turn on. So that way we know that it's going to be snapping towards the grid. Rotate, again, we'll click on this one here just so we can tell. You can rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. And at default it will be at 90 degrees. But as you can see right now, you can change the different intervals. So like say 45 degrees. Or you can put in your own numerical value. So I'll say 30 for instance, and it will rotate at 30 degrees. And just like with the top one as well, you can snap it to grid. Same with scaling. The flip one is also very important because it allows to flip the UV shell. So for instance, this is blue, and I can flip it to red. So it's quite important to use that, as you'll be flipping UV shells quite a lot in order to make sure that they're all blue.